if I start telling people about hell, I might just scare them off. Where are you going to scare them off to? Hell number 2? Or are you just going to sit there and let them burn?
In fact, they're now starting to replace the soldiers themselves. Now, this is where it gets kind of even freaky, and this is where it gets exactly like the Terminator movies, because they're not just making artificial intelligence drones in the sky, on the ground, all the military equipment that you can imagine is basically being, the human elements being removed, but even the soldier themselves. And the military is working on, I kid you not, actual Terminator robotic soldiers, just like in the Terminator movies. Now, part of the rationale that the military is going down this route, and they've been going down this route for years, this is nothing new, but they're saying that this is going to be not only a new way of warfare, okay, but it's going to save them tons of money, okay? In fact, right now, if you do the research, they're saying that the military right now is wanting to replace 1/4 of the United States soldiers, combat soldiers, by 2030 with robotic soldiers. 2030, 1/4. 1/4 of our military will be completely robotic. That's just the soldiers. That's not talking all the other drones that I just mentioned. Okay, they got 2 different names out there that I've came across if you want to do further research. One's called MARS, M-A-A-R-S, Modular Advanced Armed Robotic Systems. The other one's just called simply gunbots. Okay, gunbots. And they're basically these robots that basically are the new soldiers, and these things are armed to the teeth. They can carry weaponry that a regular soldier can't. Now, part of the rationale is, again, it's going to save them all kinds of money, because they say, listen, unlike human soldiers, these robot soldiers, they have no fear. They don't whine, they don't cry, they don't complain. They do what they're told, and they do what they're told every single time. They give nobody any lip. Oh, and by the way, they're cheap, much cheaper. Okay? Listen to this. Training and feeding and supplying soldiers is a major cost, right? A period, let alone in a time of war, right? Because you always have to have your supply lines, right? Because soldiers got to eat, not these guys. The other area that they're going to save, too, is they say, hey, listen, even after the soldier, we don't have to take care of him while he's in service or during a war, but we have to take care of him for the rest of his life, and rightly so. That's where you get your pensions. That's where you get your medical service. But if we swap out our regular soldiers with robot soldiers, you don't have to pay for that. In fact, listen to this. The benefits for serving retired members of the military was 1/4 of the Pentagon's budget in 2012. So 1/4 of the Pentagon's budget, the money they, quote, could spend, was spent on covering the medical costs, okay, and the pension plans for soldiers, right, for veterans, okay? And again, rightly so, I'm not against that, okay? But you can see how they're getting sucked into wanting, even their own words, not mine, we want to replace 1/4 of the U.S. soldiers by 2030 with robots. They're going to save money like you can't believe. And again, they're thinking about also, again, these robots are more efficient than humans. Again, they don't whine. They don't complain. They're much more exacting. They don't have any fear. They will do what they're told every single time. And so they're excited about it from that aspect as well. In fact, again, it's not just happening to the United States. It's happening around the world. And some of the reports that are going out there is they're saying that every country is going to have their own drones and robots in 10 years or less, is some of the reports. It's a whole new way of doing warfare, and it's in play. The United States, at least in this aspect, is kind of leading the way, but we're talking Russia, we're talking China, we're talking the UK, we're talking France, we're talking Israel, we're talking Turkey, in the Middle East, different countries, India. All the major players on the global scene are developing this technology all at the same time. Okay, and to give you a visual, and again, this is what we talked about at the beginning, you can just do a search and see how serious this is on our planet. You know, just type in the phrase United Nations or UN and global robot wars, and you're going to see repeated articles right now that are saying and this is what people are crying out for. And of course, they're looking to the UN to take care of it, and that's a whole other topic. But anyway, they're saying basically, UN, you better put a stop to this because we are headed for global robot wars. Now, back to the Star Wars movies, a little bit of programming. If you remember Star Wars Clone Wars, the movies, you saw that that the army that they used was a bunch of robotic clones, or not robotics. The other ones used clones. And but if you can imagine, the robots, the little guys with the elongated heads, and Roger, those guys, and that's what they used to fight their battle with, right? And they just cranked them out, and they're expendable. Who cares? But they did the job, right? Believe it or not, in essence, that's what the militaries around the world right now are working on. Only it's not just humans going up against these Rogers, okay? It's Rogers going up against Roger. There's a whole new way of warfare that's coming to the planet. Everything's radically changing. In fact, and this was kind of weird, again, Hollywood, maybe they know something we don't, but China has come out with their system. And speaking of Star Wars, if you know some of the Star Wars movies, you look at some of the scenes there, and when they're having their battle scenes, they go on this big giant table in the Star Wars movies, the creatures, and they're able to see in real time this holographic image of these ships over here, and they're firing over here and against this battle. They can see the whole battle scene in a hologram, a 3D hologram, right? Well, believe it or not, China already has one of those. But China has taken it a step further than Star Wars, okay? And basically, it's called the Holographic Ground Control System, or the GCS display. Okay, but this isn't just a display. They not only have a 3D hologram, okay, that shows where all this technology is being played out on the battlefield. Listen, this system, they can control it at the same time, right? So imagine that Star Wars scene, and it shows them where they have these guys over here. Well, you literally could, with your hands, move, the pieces, the drones, the air support, the ground drone tanks, and the robot soldiers, and you can move them with your hand. This is the system that China has right now. Now, when I saw that, it wasn't them just looking, but this 3D holographic ground control system is literally controlling this robotic army, okay? Then all of a sudden, I thought of a movie that I didn't see too long ago with my kids, and that was a movie that came out that was called Ender's Game, okay? Now, if you notice Ender's Game, if you haven't seen that, go watch it. I'm not, but basically the premise of that movie is it was younger kids, okay, because again, I think the next generation coming up, they're going to be so conditioned with this technology, they're not going to think twice about it. But in Ender's Game, the younger kids were being trained using holographic technology to control a battlefield simulation. Only it wasn't a simulation, it was a real battle. Well, that's what China has with this technology. So these robots are not only coming, and they're not only being replaced, okay, but you combine this with all the drones in the sky, every piece of military equipment that you can think of that's out there, okay, is being droned out. Oh, by the way, I didn't even share this. The drone technology that they're working on is they can even attach this AI system and turn the vehicle, if you will, into a drone vehicle to existing vehicles. I could not believe it. The guys had actually developed a system that you could attach to a boat, a military boat or a military jeep, and it literally will take over that jeep or that boat, and you can control it from afar. You don't need human. So it's not that you got to go out there and now invest billions and billions and trillions of dollars on all brand new jeeps and all brand new boats to make sure that they're artificially connected. You could pop this system onto it and make it into a drone. So again, it could happen very quickly, and it is happening very quickly. But again, I think all of this is just pre-programming us for what is to come. Now, the other thing real quick, because I know we're running out of time, is what they're doing is they're already conditioning us to let these robots, okay, make the human decision who gets to live and who gets to die. And part of that is I think that they're doing that once again through Hollywood, right? What was that show that came out not too long ago? Was American Sniper or something like that?
Yeah.
And what was the premise of that? If you guys remember that movie, it was the guy who was a sniper, right? In warfare with terrorism, whatever, and he had to make the horrible decision: is that kid carrying a bomb, or is he just a kid? Did his mom hand him a grenade, or is that just a sandwich, right? And he had to make a split-second decision with that. And that was his life. How many times did he have to do that? And this is reality. Soldiers are being asked to do this, right? Is that a real threat? Is that just, and then they got to take the target out. So, and of course, the movie premise was him about going through this angst and this pressure and the post-traumatic stress, syndrome, and with having to make these kind of decisions and yet still be a family man. And it's just, how and basically what it leaves you with is like, how could we ask a person to do this? How could we ask a person to make this life or death decision when they don't know for sure? Then, if you notice, not too long after that, they came out with another Hollywood movie called Good Kill. Now, Good Kill was basically the exact same premise as American Sniper, okay, except, this was not a guy with a rifle taking somebody out. This was a guy flying a Predator drone, right, from afar. But he still had to make the decision to give the command to launch the missile to take somebody out. And it was the same premise. Oh, he's doing this and having to make these decisions, and somehow he's supposed to go home and live a normal life, and the angst that he goes through and the post-traumatic stress disorder and all that stuff, and how is he supposed to deal with this and all that, blah, blah, blah. And again, you're left with this impression, how could we ask a human to do this? How could we put them through this if only we had some computer that could do the same thing? As we all know, computers are more efficient than humans. And, they could make a more intelligent decision than us. And they could be responsible for pulling the trigger, quote unquote, and it would save the humans from so much anguish, yet still get the job done. Well, believe it or not, that's exactly what they're doing. They're now developing these systems with artificial intelligence, removing the human element, because that was always what they've been saying for years. Don't worry, we'll always leave a human involved in the loop so that it cannot get out of control. Well, now we're already being conditioned to remove the human element. They're pulling on our emotional strings to let us to go along with this reality where now this artificial intelligence will decide who gets to live and who gets to die. In fact, they're already having discussions with this back to the issue of Google cars. I kid you not, because they're already running into a philosophical question. Okay, wait a second. We know this is going to happen. As these Google cars get out on the roads, and other people are wanting to do the same thing too, but you got artificial intelligence controlling with GPS, the vehicle. The human's not controlling it. But as we all know, even if you are paying attention, right, invariably, there's sometimes you cannot avoid an accident, right? Somebody's tire blows out and their car swerves right in front of you. You didn't do anything wrong, but it's too late. You're headed for a car crash, right? So those things happen. Well, they're already having discussions, all right, who is going to be responsible for the death that is about to come? And they give a scenario, right? And these are viable scenarios that they're talking about. Is, okay, so this Google car is going to crash. We entered in a split-second decision that somebody's going to die because a school bus is getting ready to tip over, and it caused a car in the other lane to swerve into the oncoming traffic, and Google car has to make a decision. Do I go and smash into the busload of children, or do I go ahead and swerve into this car that only has one driver? Which one is going to die? Now, no human is making that decision. It's a computer. And they're already saying this is the reality that we are headed for. But again, this is all step-by-step programming that we are completely now removing the human element with all this technology, and it's okay. When it comes to life and death issues, whether it's a car crash, whether it's somebody needs to be taken out from the sky, or who knows what if you became a bad guy? A computer will now have the ability to take you out in the sky, on the ground, on the water, underneath the water, or even that little robot that replaced that soldier. And it's all being combined with artificial intelligence. It's happening on a global basis, and most people right now, as we're doing this broadcast, is still watching football.
Yeah.
It just blows me away, man.
Wow. Yes. Oh, my goodness. So much information And there's so many other aspects that we didn't get to touch, the brain-controlled drones and things like that. But we're out of time, and we just want to thank everyone for listening tonight. Whoever's listening, whoever touches the archives, I just hope that you understand, the Christians, like Pastor Billy said, you need to start serving Jesus and spreading the gospel, getting other people saved before this terrible time comes. And, we have 30 seconds left. Anything you want to say, Pastor Billy?
Well, again, I think that's the big point. If you're listening to this broadcast and you're not saved, if you're not sure you're not saved, I'm not here to cast doubt. But I tell you what, one thing you don't want to get wrong is where you spend eternity. There is a heaven, there is a hell, and the only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. I didn't say that, he did. He is the way, the truth, the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through him. Call upon the name of Jesus Christ now and ask him to save you and forgive you. If you are a Christian, get busy serving the Lord. Don't get distracted with the things of this world. We are still here because God wants other people to be saved. We are his mouthpieces, his hands, his eyes, his feet. Let's get busy being faithful before he comes back.
Amen. Good night. We're out of time.
Good night, guys. Thanks for having me.
Good night.
If you like our videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the